Hello, Kelly. I have a very special guest today, and she was my coach who was very impactful. So I'm very happy for her to be here. And I know she has a story. I'm not good enough to what is possible. And it's a interesting story. It's going to be related more to the body image, uh, all those moments when we are counting our foods and regret if we've had enough gym workouts in our system
Mm.
to make us feel good enough, right? So it's going to be an interesting story. But as always, I want to start with the first question. Kelly, what shall we
Yes.
celebrate about you today?
Well, I think the most relevant thing to me right now that I am still semi celebrating myself for is that on the weekend I hiked up a volcano, and I have never done anything like that, even though I consider myself to be a pretty fit person, being like in the fitness industry for so many years. I've never done anything that adventurous and outdoorsy before. I always like admire those types of people, but I have a newfound appreciation for hikers because it was the absolute hardest thing I have ever done in my whole life. And after many emotional breakdowns, one of which happened at like 4 a.m. in the morning, almost at the top of a volcano, just like clung to a rock, like totally crying and saying, I can't do it. And this isn't worth it. And I'm just so terrified of heights too. So that was adding to it. But
Oh,
I somehow mustered up the courage in me to keep going. And I did it. So I'm celebrating myself for that
yay!
big time.
And how many hours was that hike?
The first day, it was about 7 hours to base camp. And then we had to wake up at 4 a.m. the next day to summit the mountain, which was about another hour-ish. I think I took longer because of my emotional breakdown, but
Of
about an hour.
of
And
course.
then I'd say like 3.5 hours on the way down, which was like all steep. I fell probably like 50 times on the way down.
That sounds incredible. So, besides you surviving that, so
Yeah.
what did you learn about yourself from that experience that we could really celebrate? And you could also put it into your bank of like, oh, I possess those skills and abilities.
You know what? I had like a very profound breakthrough during this volcano hike, as I do. And I think the most applicable thing that I learned about myself, and not just myself, but in life, is that we need contrast in order to really change how we are experiencing everything in life. And before I had gone on this hike, I was feeling like I was falling into a really big rut where just like really small tasks were feeling extremely challenging.
Mhm.
And I was just feeling really down and having very, like, I would say, quote unquote, negative thought patterns around everything that normally I don't feel or think negatively about, like even like my job and work, and like everything was just feeling so hard and so heavy. And I realized that that really had nothing to do with what I was actually doing being hard or me not liking what I was doing, but more so that our minds are just wired to find challenges. And
Yeah,
when there's not
for
really any
sure.
challenges, your mind is just going to make them up. And so by actually having a real physical challenge to contrast the rest of my life with, literally everything this week feels just like so easy in
Mhm.
comparison. So
That's
I'm feeling
awesome.
so much more at peace with just life in general after having actually accomplished something that was incredibly difficult.
Yes, incredible. So you are stronger than you thought. That's
Yes.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
always a good reminder.
Yes, thank you for sharing. All right, that's awesome story. Yes, our mind likes to create lots of stories and create problems. And of course, our topic is I'm not good enough. So if we go
Mm,
back to Kelly, who really had that um, underlying desire to be really good, but from the
mm.
perspective, I'm not good enough. So how do you see your growth?
Yeah, I think my I'm not good enough story is so multi-layered, like it is with everyone's. And it feels like to me, just based on my own observations with talking to other people and working with other people and just really dissecting my own life and experience with this, it seems as though that seed is planted very young based on some kind of emotional experience that feels uncomfortable. And for me, it was that I felt very lonely when I
Mm,
was younger from a very young age. And I think that that was because I was like the youngest in my family. And so I never really belonged with my cousins or anything like that. And then when I went to school, really struggled making friends. And as our minds do, our minds are wired to try to fix things that feel uncomfortable. My mind just started to try to find a reason why I was having this experience.
mhm,
And the easiest target that my mind had of why I was lonely, why I felt uncomfortable, why I didn't have the connection that I really deeply desired
mhm.
was that there was something wrong with me. And so I sought out to try to figure out what that thing that was wrong with me was so that I could try to get ahead of it and fix it and solve the problem.
Yes.
And that just started creating all of these different stories of not enough, as you're saying. So, not good enough, not pretty enough, not skinny enough, not outgoing enough, on and on and on and on. And my body was a very, very easy target for the I'm not enough story. And so that created the groundwork for me to have basically a lifelong battle with my relationship with my body because that story was planted so early of what if my body's not enough? What if my body is the reason why I'm not getting the needs that I have met, the connection, the love, the fun, the relationships. Maybe my body's the reason why I feel lonely, why I feel ashamed, why I feel not good enough. And so I set out to fix that at a very young age.
Yes, awesome. Thank you for sharing. So I have a few points on that, but what's coming up,
Sure.
especially after what you shared with us, your 7 hour hike to Volcano,
Yeah,
up and steep. What can you really say about your body now?
that is such a great question because I remember multiple times throughout that 7 hour trek up the mountain on the first day, just trying to reframe the automatic thoughts that I was having because my automatic thoughts around my body still to this day are a lot of the time very shaming and related to that I'm not enough story. So there was immediately some stories about how I'm not as fit as I thought that I was, and this is embarrassing, and I should be ashamed, and all of these different things.
Mm-hmm.
And I actively caught that and found it really interesting that those were the types of thoughts that were going through my mind, and immediately was able to upgrade those thoughts and see what was really true about what was going on. And what was true was that I was like halfway up a mountain
Mm-hmm.
and had been
Yeah,
like climbing for like 3.5 hours and
yeah.
was really tired. And that doesn't mean that I'm not fit enough, that I'm not good enough, that I'm not, whatever stories my mind was trying to automatically fill in and attach meaning to. It was that I was actually pretty capable and that my body was a vessel for me to be able to do some pretty challenging but also very cool things.
Yes, your body is a vessel to do some challenging things. And you are here today after that crazy hike. And I know you were with other hikers who actually do that quite regularly.
Yes.
That's
Yeah. And
incredible.
the comparison game was really strong for me as it always has been, because going back to that
Yeah.
I'm not good enough story, then we try to find evidence of that through comparing ourselves to
Exactly.
other people.
Yeah. Compared to the hikers, you weren't as good of a
Yeah.
hiker, but you had a good evidence
Right.
now to be a good hiker because you didn't really practice. You don't do that often, but just now celebrating your body. So your body is enough. And how
Right.
you survived the 7 hour hike to the volcano. So that's awesome. So I'm celebrating with you. Yay. So
Thank you.
it has the body story.
Yes.
So climb the volcano. or go for a hike or do something really
Yes.
prove yourself that your body is a vessel and it's capable of so many great things. So I'm glad that you're testing it out and find out new evidence to support your new beliefs and also question your thoughts that come up and upgrading them to what is really true. And yeah, the truth was your
Yeah.
type. But if we go back to your story, what you shared with us previously, so you were lonely, you were never belonged, and
Mhm.
you struggled to make friends, and you just described me because like, oh,
Yeah.
I had that. Oh, no wonder.
Right.
I can see how our brain just like finds a way to protect us, but really what we want is to feel connected. But actually, by
Mhm.
having that story, I'm not good enough, it keeps us more and more away from connecting.
That's right.
That's what
Yeah.
you're experiencing as well. I mean, how efficient, how effective your I'm not good enough was for you to connect.
That's so true because it's hilarious when we start to get into this work and we see that everything that we do, that we think, that we believe, everything that we are kind of clung to was developed to try to get us something that it's actively pushing away, which is what you're describing.
Yeah.
And so this whole identity and thought pattern and belief system around how I might not be good enough was trying to support me in finding out if it was true so
Mhm.
that I could try to get ahead of it, find a way
Yeah.
to fix it so that I could be enough, so that I could be connected, so that I could feel the types of relationships and
Mhm.
connection and belonging that I deeply desired. But having that story be in the forefront of my life and having it filter how I saw myself,
Mhm.
have it filter how I interpreted the experiences that were happening around me, happening to me, made me feel the complete opposite of what it was designed to get me. It made me feel even less than. It made me feel even less worthy of love. It made me feel even more disconnected from other people, but also from myself.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then from that desire to strive to be good enough and also have enough of a body. So, what actions, like how were you treating yourself? How were you treating your
Yeah.
body?
I was treating it exactly like it was never enough. I was, from a very young age, just treating it like it wasn't enough, basically, mainly through my thoughts and through the way that I saw myself, the way that I talked to myself internally when I saw pictures of myself, when I was going out and looking in the mirror,
Mhm.
etc. And by the time that I was old enough to understand that you can technically change the way that your body looks by
Mhm.
controlling how much exercise you do, controlling how much food you eat, etc., then it was treating my body like it wasn't enough by trying to force it to be something that it naturally wasn't.
Mhm.
And that came in a lot of different ways and showed up in all these different shapes and sizes of over exercising, under eating, developing an eating disorder, trying to heal from that for over a decade, but still holding on to this idea that I might not be good enough, my body might not be good enough. And so even though I had an intention and really created a brand around being all about balance and having a healthy relationship with food and exercise and your body and really preached those types of things out loud, I was deep down so terrified that one day I might be proven that my deepest fear was true, that my body isn't good enough as it is, that if I let my body go at all, if I stop holding on to control as tightly as I was, that I was going to get that evidence again, that I was going to experience that loneliness, that disconnection, that insignificance that I experienced so much when I was younger.
Yes. Yeah, it's amazing just how that thought created so many seeds that started to go into more obsession and just
Yeah.
again moving you more and more away from connecting with who you were. And I wonder how you also experienced other people. So when you were feeling you were not good enough, your body was not good enough, like how were you treating other people? Because I know you were a personal trainer, so you had clients, you did some nutrition work, so you had clients. So how do you feel you were treating other people?
Yeah. Yeah. There was a lot of projection and comparison going on. And I really used the people around me in any given moment to determine how I should feel about myself and how I should treat myself. And so if there was anyone that I could around me that I could justify that maybe I was skinnier than them, or maybe I worked harder than them, or maybe I was fitter than them, or maybe I was more disciplined or motivated than them, then I would hold on to that so strongly as a way of trying to uh, make my own self perception feel enough that I could relax into that experience with them. And it was those types of people and those types of relationships that I felt more at peace with, weirdly. And it was totally like a self-induced illusionary type of peace and connection, because I felt like I could be more present with them, because I wasn't all up in my mind like I'm being triggered by not being good enough because they are more fit than me, or they are more disciplined, or they're skinnier, or they look better, or they're more this and I'm less than them in this way and whatever. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a lot of mind
Yes.
drama. A lot of mind
Yes,
drama.
yes. Sounds familiar for sure.
Yeah.
Well, in what I hear you say, so you were outsourcing your feeling enough to other people, and you were feeling more at peace when you were getting those clients who weren't as thin as you were and as fit as you were. So that was your moment. It's like, okay, we're doing good here, buddy, because these people are not as good as I am. So and then you felt
Right.
enough for that moment until the other people came who were more fit and thinner and better at what
Right.
at hiking. And then suddenly you
Yeah.
got triggered and you went into your obsession of either over exercising or under eating and all of that. So that was just kind of creating
Yeah.
that whole perpetuation of I'm not good enough compared to
Yes.
somebody. Okay, or something. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So I think it's time to like take a breath and exhale out and a moment to forgive ourselves and a part of ourselves who actually brought us to who we are now and where we are, because there was that moment, I know in your journey, just like in my journey, that something came
Mhm.
and you suddenly said, huh, there's something else that can be possible and I don't have to live like that. So
Yes.
what was that moment for you? Do you remember that?
Yes. I call this moment the big epiphany. Yeah. It was a very significant moment in time and I reference it a lot. But it was 2 summers ago
Mhm.
and I was at a point in my life where I had been extremely isolated for a long time. I mean, having a hidden eating disorder and having a really poor relationship with my body really put me into a lifestyle that I convinced myself that I just enjoyed and liked, but was really just very isolating and very just hyper focused on what I was doing, how much I was eating, how much I was exercising, what my body looked like that day, etc. And this one day I was asked by a new friend of mine to go out with her that Friday evening to go out dancing to this like outdoor little bar that was just open for the summer in the city that I was living in. And although I was absolutely terrified of doing that because it was so out of my comfort zone, I also was excited about the idea of challenging myself outside of my comfort zone because I was starting to do a lot of personal development work and healing work on myself, and seeing
Mhm.
that this was an opportunity to have more of what I actually really wanted and craved in my life, even if I was afraid of it. And
Mhm.
so I went out dancing, or I went out to this bar with my friend, and my friend was and is one of the most outgoing people that I
Mhm.
know, is just so like free and confident in herself and in her body, and really lives as if she doesn't take other people's opinions of her into consideration. And I really look up to her in that way. And that was just so polar opposite to who I was up until that point in my life. And I remember being there with her, and no one was really dancing yet. It was still pretty early in the night, but there was some music going. And she's like, let's dance. And she's like just going around and moving her body and flowing and having a good time and just being so present and having like just, she looked amazing.
Yeah.
And I was just like trying to mimic her movements. And it literally felt like I had a straight jacket over my whole body. Like my brain was telling me all one thing, my body was like, no. And it was probably the most uncomfortable I've ever been up until I hiked that volcano. And and I just remember that moment being so significant to me because it was a realization of, okay, I've just spent the last 10 to 15 years of my life
Mm,
totally obsessed and dedicated to changing my body to be what I thought that it needed to be in order for me to feel confident in my
mhm,
life. And I am not feeling confident at
mhm,
all. And
mhm,
so there must be a disconnect here. And it
mhm.
was like big light bulb moment of like, obviously the way that I've been approaching feeling confident and good about myself and having the type of life that I desired was not working at all.
Yeah, so that was a big epiphany. Awesome. That was the realization that everything that you were striving for, like when we started, you were feeling lonely, you never belonged, you struggled to make friends. And that moment really came with that I felt so isolated.
Yes.
It was just
Yeah.
confirming again what you were trying to
Avoid.
avoid, yes. And
Yeah.
really for that deeper connection with yourself and the world around you and the people. Okay. And we have another desire that came up here. So you were working your body the way you were working it in order to also feel confident.
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
Oh, yes. So a new feeling came up. So
Yeah.
you're doing everything you were doing with your body. So in order for you to feel confident. So
In
did
order for me to feel confident.
yeah, in order to feel for you confidence. Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you were feeling confident, then would you be feeling enough?
I think that's what I associated with. Like if I was enough, I would feel confident. So I tried to be skinny enough. I tried to be pretty enough. I tried to be successful enough in my business. You know, that I'm not enough story just finds every single vehicle that it can to
Yeah.
justify itself and lives on and on. Even when you reach one standard of being enough, it's not never enough. You have to find another thing to keep that story going because that's how the ego really keeps itself alive, is by continuing to justify itself and its stories. And so no matter how much enoughness I found externally, it was never enough.
Yes. So yeah, you cannot really get more of something that you don't ever have, will have, because what
Right.
is enough? Because that was your story and you created a lot of attachments. So now we are back to that epiphany. And then from
Yeah.
that, what started to happen? What did you do with that epiphany? What actions did you take? How did you start
Mm,
moving towards a possibility of connecting with the other part of you who was really
yeah.
calling for your attention and started to scream louder and had to bring you to the dancing floor
Mm-hmm. Yes.
to have that
Yeah.
epiphany. So what happened then?
Yeah, so much unfolded from that moment. It was that moment that really planted the seed for the next 2 years of my life that were very polar opposite to how I lived prior to that. And I would say it took about a month to actually get the ball rolling after that experience with my friend on the dance floor. And the real change happened actually after I listened to a podcast that I like randomly stumbled upon. And it was a podcast where the girl was explaining her story of having an eating disorder and not knowing that she had one, and her body image stuff and what happened to her in childhood that led to her having this experience. And I just saw so much of myself in her that it was like all the circuitry in my brain went off and connected every dot, and the clouds parted and the choir sang, and like everything was just so clear. I was like, I have really two choices now. I can keep going down the same path that I was, terrified of my body changing, clinging to control, doing everything that I can to try to manipulate the size and shape of my body and making that my number one priority so that I can one day, hopefully, maybe one day feel enough, even though I have so much evidence that that's not effective and not working for me so far. Or I could go the complete opposite route and completely reject and abandon any and all means of controlling my body through food, through exercise, and really force myself to face the very thing that I was terrified of, that was controlling my life for the last over a decade. And I made that decision one day, but it was a decision that I had made somewhat prior to that, many times, where I would realize, maybe I'm being a little bit too controlling with my food, with my body. Maybe this is becoming a little bit too obsessive. Let me just be a little bit more flexible. Let me just, not try to control what I'm doing as much as I am. And I would do it, but it was always conditional. It was conditional on, I'll do it as long as my body doesn't change or doesn't change too much.
Yeah.
And I knew that this time it had to be different. And so I made that commitment to myself to go down this path unconditionally, no matter how much my body changed, no matter how uncomfortable it was, that I had to stay committed to my healing and my recovery. And it's been now 2 years of me facing a lot of darkness, a lot of pain that I had suppressed through control and through shrinking myself for so many years. And there were a lot of very dark moments, a lot of crying, a lot of feeling my child self and everything that I had used to fuel my eating disorder and my relationship with exercise all of these years. And I would say that it took a lot of just nervous system work to just settle into where I am and to stretch my capacity to be inside of uncomfortable experiences, like shame, for example, is a really big one that I had repressed through the control of my body for so many years. And as my body did change with the types of lifestyle changes that I was committing myself to, there was a lot of shame, a lot of it, a lot of not being able to look in the mirror at myself without crying for months on end, a lot of every time that someone would take a photo of me at a family gathering, begging them to never post it and to delete it immediately because it was so uncomfortable to feel that shame that I just was so used to numbing and pushing away. But it allowed me and gifted me the opportunity to really learn that shame doesn't have to be in the shadows. It doesn't have to be something that I avoid or that I push away. It gets to be a part of my human experience, and that it doesn't actually mean anything about me if I'm experiencing shame, but that it just gets to be a part of my human experience. And I get to learn how to be with myself and how to question the thoughts and the beliefs that come up that are creating that experience of shame.
Yes, that is huge. So I'm going to applaud you.
Thank you.
Your courage to open the door and just start seeing a little bit of light.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of courage. So you are amazing. That's another point to celebrate your courageousness.
Thank you.
Yes. And what I see, as I like to call it, in my experience, you are becoming an extraordinary human. You're allowing
Yes.
yourself to feel all the feelings and learning how not to judge some of them, like shame, and just
That's right.
feel them. So, and this is a very humbling and vulnerable experience. But as you practice it, it actually becomes really amazing because you are really developing resiliency to feel what comes. And I always like to imagine kind of the tree, because yes, I think we've sold on that belief that the life should be just like, oh, it's always happy, it's always good. And when you don't feel happy, it's like, what's wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? And what is not like supposed to
Yeah,
be happening?
so
But
true.
we're almost like capping our emotional experience of high emotions by not letting ourselves feel not so high emotions, like those low vibe emotions. But they're the ones who, yes, put us down, but they ground us. And when we
Yes.
feel them and survive, there is only way up.
Yes, it's so true. This experience has gifted me such a valuable thing to have as a tool in this human life, because we're so easily conditioned from the time that we pop out of the womb, basically, that certain emotional experiences are not okay. And
Yeah.
so we automatically go into judgment of them, go into fix it mode. We try to numb them through our behaviors. We try to fix them through just getting a lot of anxiety and going up into our head and trying to think about how we can find a solution to the problem that's causing our emotional discomfort.
Yes.
And that's how I lived my life for so many years. It was a lot of just pushing away the discomfort that I felt in my body, but really waking up to the fact that the emotional experiences that I was having were okay, and then I could find safety in them and allow my nervous system to adapt to a much wider range of emotions, has allowed me to really soften into my life experience, to not be so terrified of certain things happening anymore, because I have a deeper level of trust and groundedness that I'll be okay if those
Yeah.
things happen. And it's just been some of the most powerful work that I've done. And I know the work that I did around my body and my body image really set the groundwork for this being expressed in every area of my life.
Yes, awesome. I'm glad to hear that, because that's where we're moving to next. So the part of us who is not good enough has
Mm-hmm.
brought us to that moment. We saw the light, we opened the door, we follow the light.
Yeah.
Then on the other side, what becomes possible for you as you are connecting more and more with a part of you who is enough.
Yeah.
So
So
now
much more.
let's revisit you here. What have you
Yeah.
learned? What has made sense to you?
Mm,
What's been your aha moments? And really, Kelley, what is
yeah.
possible for you now?
There's just so much freedom to live from this place. And when I say freedom to live, I mean freedom to just experience the full range of my human experience, to have more connection with people and feel safe in that, to have more peace and relaxation and feel safe in that, to have more joy and adventure and feel safe in that, and to have more security and just safety within myself and feel safe in that. And when I say and feel safe in that, I really mean that those were things that I was striving for so long, but simultaneously pushing away because I didn't feel like I could relax, because if I did, something bad might happen. Or I didn't feel like I could connect, because if I did, that might be taken away from me. I might be rejected. I might be abandoned. I didn't think that I could feel joy, because if I did, I might be too distracted and not see the bad thing that's coming around the corner that I need to be prepared for.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very familiar for sure.
right,
Yeah, that's
right.
huge. So what I hear you saying is just like trusting your experiences, trusting yourself that you can handle what comes, and just
Hmm.
trusting in that sense of being and who you are becoming as you're
Right.
moving to that what's possible. And tell us what are you doing now? Well, let me start with this first. Let's
Sure.
revisit your body and your food and your exercising. So how's the freedom showing up
Mhm.
in these areas?
Yeah, well, I'm in a big moment of just freedom with that right now, as I am currently indefinitely traveling and backpacking around Central America.
Yeah.
And I also did the same thing last year, backpacking for several months. And it's so cool to have moments of really checking in with myself and acknowledging the freedom that I have now compared to what I used to experience, because there's just so much more space in my mind and peace
Mhm.
in my life and in my relationship with food and exercise now, where it's not at the forefront of my mind. It's just something that is included in my life, but it isn't like the center of my whole life. And so I get to just have experiences that enhance my life without worrying about how I can control how much I'm eating, how I can control how much movement I'm doing. And that's not to say those thoughts don't come up, because they still do, but it's just so much more
Hmm.
obvious to me to like check in and see, is this really how I want to live? Is this actually in service to me? Is me choosing to eat a ice cream today really going to have a negative impact on my life as much as my mind is saying that it is going to? And also questioning, is it going to have as good of an impact on my life as I'm questioning it too? Like, it kind of comes both ways, because having such a weird relationship with food for so long, it was both the enemy but also on a pedestal at the same time. I compare it to like a toxic boyfriend where you're like, I love you, but I can't have you. Like, it's just it's a
That's
lot
fair.
of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so now it's a lot less on the forefront of my mind. It definitely doesn't determine the behaviors and the actions that I do now. And I think the biggest thing is just how much space and peace in the mind I have now compared to before, where I'm not revolving my whole day over what and how much I can eat and when I'm going to be able to move my body that day. It's just like, what do I want to do? And I do that. And I trust that that's okay. And that feels so freeing.
Yes, trusting that's okay and believing it's okay. So what I hear you saying is that your freedom now is not conditional on meeting some kind of standards that you created yourself for yourself when you were in
Yes.
I'm not good enough mode. And also at the same time, like you're not going just like freedom, eat whatever.
Yeah.
What I hear you saying, you're
Right.
still kind of checking in with yourself, like, is it in service to me and my body? So instead of saying like, is it me making it thin or fit or whatever?
Right.
So you're still
Yes.
asking yourself, like, what impact am I creating with the food
Hmm.
choices I'm choosing?
Yeah.
Also, at the
Yeah.
same time, when you have that off the hook or like you're not controlling, the freedom becomes more like allowing. Like I think when we
Yeah.
control, we crave more of that. And then it becomes
Yes.
like the fight and the resistance and the stories and
Hmm.
whatever. But when we
So
start
true.
playing and testing it and trusting it, like, okay, well, I'm just eating because I can, or I'm eating because I want. Then our mind is also calm. It's like it's not going away. So it's okay. If I
Yeah.
want it, I have it. Like I know when I was practicing my freedom, food freedom,
Hmm.
I would go and just like decide like for a week, I'm actually gonna enjoy a dessert every day after lunch.
Yeah.
I would just go
Yeah.
and enjoy the dessert after lunch. I'll like, be intentional about it. And then by the end of the week, I'm like, oh, I don't need desserts. Like, really? I can have it whenever I want it.
So true. Yes. I love that you're explaining that experience, because that's been such like a mind-blowing thing to me as I've embarked on my food freedom journey. Because for so long, the reason why I controlled my food so much is because I didn't think that I could trust myself around food. I thought that I just liked food too much, that I just, my metabolism was messed up. Like, I don't know, I just had a lot of, there's something wrong with me, that I need to be able to externally control my food in order for me to be okay. But through the process that you're describing of just like allowing what I want to be followed, and to just release that like restriction around the corner, like not just like, I'll have a dessert tomorrow or today, but not tomorrow. I have to be done after today. Like there's no like looming, like it being taken away from me later. It's made me realize that like I I naturally want to eat well most of the time. Like there's just like an intelligence and a wisdom that comes through when you're not egoically trying to control it, that actually just like wants to feel good, like wants to nourish your body, wants to have a good time in this life. And it's going to determine your food choices based on what's going to allow you that. And sometimes that means having the ice cream, but it definitely doesn't mean having it every day if that's going to make you feel not good.
Well, and I know like for myself, it's just the edge is off, and just
Right.
knowing and also trusting, creating that evidence. And really, when you just start allowing a moments of trust and creating the evidence, there is like suddenly that connection happens. Like, of course I can trust my body. Like I'm not
Mm-hmm.
craving it. It's okay. And yeah, we can have it
Right.
when we want it. And guess what? It does not mean like, oops, you just have
Mm,
like right away, you gained weight. Well, it's actually a part of human experience as well. And like I like to say, if I have my fluctuation of weight throughout the week, that's actually like it's normal. It's like supposed to be. When it does
right.
fluctuate, it's like,
That's yeah, what's going on? Yeah. Bodies are so adaptive. They're
yeah.
so just constantly flowing with life and trying we're so conditioned to think we're supposed to control it and make it be this one thing all the time, but that's been something I've really worked on releasing from my expectations of myself and my body, because especially through the last 2 years of really committing myself to healing my relationship with food and exercise in my body, I've seen my body change a lot in all different ways, up, down, bigger, smaller, like it's been all over the place. And it's been a reflection of where I'm at in my life.
Mm.
And through like forcing myself to allow it through my behaviors, I've come to actually internally come to acceptance and peace with it too, because I've just seen that that's just what bodies do and it's okay.
Yes. Well, tell us like what was your maybe just method or tactic, or what did you have to do to just allow yourself to come to that level of acceptance and seeing your body changing
Mm-hmm.
through your as you were, I guess, changing your mind and adapting to all these experiences and allowing the body to change, like how you were maintaining that peace. Is there a tool you would like to share?
Yeah, emotional and somatic work, which we've referenced a little bit in this call, has been the most life-changing for me because I am by default a very heady person and I experience my life through my thoughts most of the time. And I've always just identified as I'm just a really anxious person. Like I overthink all the time, etc. And one of the like craziest mind-blowing things I ever learned is that that is just a protective mechanism to me not feeling safe in my emotions and in the sensations that are present in my body. And so through doing work to really, one, express emotion, so getting connected to it, allowing it, journaling from it, talking it out with someone that I feel trusted with, which for me, my rock has been my best friend, Colleen, where we just have this ongoing agreement that like we just if we're struggling with something and we don't even know what we're struggling with, we just like press record on a voice note and just start speaking from whatever discomfort that we're feeling and that we can tell we're by default trying to avoid.
Mhm.
And it's been a commitment to just honoring my feelings, expressing them through emotional work, and then also somatically working with the raw sensations in my body and stretching my capacity to really be in my body and to feel my body, the clenching in my stomach that I call shame, or the tightness in my chest and my shoulders that I call anxiety. Because emotion is really just the label that we're attaching to a sensation in the body. And when we really start to do that work of being present in the body and embodying all of the different range of experiences that we learn that the types of emotions that we call negative or that we're trying to by default avoid or escape or numb from are
Mhm.
just like little contractions in the body that really aren't that big of a deal. They might not be like pleasurable or the most comfortable experience in the world, but they're not nearly as much of a threat as the mind thinks that they are.
Yes, that's fantastic, because we definitely need our emotions to fuel our actions. to move to now what's possible from the place I am enough. And of course, when we are growing and expanding, it's just natural to expect that we will be feeling all those emotions, the fear, the anxiety, the I'm not good enough will be coming up. But since you've already been working and practicing and creating that resiliency, for now, let's just see where you are. You're enough. You're becoming enough. Right?
Yes.
So what is there for you? What is really possible? What's your vision? What's your creation? And what are you ready to experience as you still feel the fear, as you still feel the anxiety, and as you feel all those emotions? But what is possible? What are you allowing yourself to see there in the future, the vision?
I think the biggest thing that I'm allowing myself to envision is just really embodying allowance and acceptance of my whole human experience, because that is my deepest intention, is just to be present in my life and not try to control it, because I can't anyways. Control is always an illusion. It's just that sometimes we do things and then they go the way we expected, and then the ego takes credit for it and said, see, I created that. But in my opinion, it's just an experience of life that is ever unfolding. And I don't know if we have any contribution to really what happens or what doesn't, but I just want to be really present in all of it, and knowing that there's going to be a lot of discomfort as a human, and there's going to be a lot of things that don't go the way that I think that they should. And the more that I can just be present in that experience and use the tools that I have learned to get myself through the last 2 years, working with on the mindset level, questioning my thoughts, questioning the beliefs that are creating my suffering, investigating them, and choosing to upgrade my thoughts and my beliefs to ones that are more in service to me, really getting connected with my emotions, allowing those to be expressed in a safe space, and stretching my capacity to be inside of physical discomfort in my body, whether it's because I'm hiking up a mountain or because I'm having a really bad body image day, or having a lot of uncertainty in my life and feeling some tightness in my body because of that. It's just the full allowance of my entire human experience is really my deepest intention, that I still obviously need to work on, because it's just so conditioned into us to be in resistance to things that we don't think they should be the way that they are. But anytime that we're in resistance to reality, we suffer. And it's that suffering that is our alarm clock to wake up to what it is that we are doing and believing about reality that's not true. And that is just the way that I am continuously trying to ground myself within, so that I can live my life in the most authentic way possible.
Wow. Yes, I feel you. So allowing feels so free and so unconditional.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
right.
just embracing what's coming. And I love that practice.
Oh, are you okay?
So allowing and also questioning your thoughts. So in what I see you did, you questioned your thoughts. I'm not good enough. And look what happened.
Yeah. Yeah, so much.
Yes, so much come through you, out of you. And you're also allowing to receive, just like I'm allowing to receive the, my throat.
Yeah.
Not happy, but that's okay. We're gonna move on. And I guess I invite the audience to question your thoughts, because we have lots of thoughts, and
Yes, we
they're
do.
really true. And now, Kelly, I so appreciate that you came here to tell your story
Of
and tell us
course.
now about you and where you are and what wonderful coaching you do and how you can help others to get to the freedom that you have a chance to experience.
Thank you so much. This has been such a wonderful conversation, and it's been such a blessing to just be in your presence and to jam on something that is clearly so close to both of our hearts. And if anyone wants to know more about me and dive deeper into the work that I put out there in the world, you can find me on Instagram at Kellevate, which is just the word like elevate, but with a K at the beginning, a play on words with my name. So Kellevate _ You can also listen to my podcast on Apple or Spotify. It's just called the Kellevate Podcast, where I talk about all things healing body image, relationship with food and exercise, and also just my journey of healing myself from the inside out. And I just rawly share my insights, my breakthroughs, and the things that I am learning about myself and life as I experience it as a human. And I'm just so passionate about the work that I do. I love supporting women and coming back home to themselves beyond all of the limitations and the conditionings that they've adopted throughout their life, and really learning how free and at peace and connected to themselves in the world they are capable of having, and how much better life is when your whole life doesn't revolve around controlling it.
Yes, freedom.
Yes.
And yes, I love your podcast, and you're definitely courageous because yes, she shares a lot of good nuggets where
Thank
a lot of
you.
herself are not ready to go there and also share publicly. So kudos to you for taking that courage. I'm sure it's very
Thank you so
healing
much.
for you. And I
It
will
is.
include all her links in the section on the YouTube there.
Perfect. Thank you.
So that you can find Kelley and follow her journey. And she is an amazing coach. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
All right.